Today on the Daily Dose, the coevolution of dogs and humans.
Boring!
Tens of thousands of years ago.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Hello again. So, quite some time ago, do note that this screenshot is months old, a subscriber suggested what I think is an excellent video topic. Something we've surely all heard before at some point is this notion that dogs have evolved alongside humans for thousands and thousands of years. Obviously, the implication, or what's often outright stated, is that because dogs allegedly co-evolved with us for so much time, they are thus very in tune with us and a great fit for human society, or something very much to that effect. But that is complete horseshit. The truth is that dogs are not compatible with us or our world. One source even claims that dogs have been thoroughly integrated into human society. In terms of their actual presence, meaning them simply being there, this is not inaccurate, as dogs are unfortunately everywhere. But in terms of their effects upon us, they are a terrible fit. In spite of this undertaking, to breed dogs that serve human-centric purposes, these awful creatures possess many qualities that make them unfit to be indoor animals. They aren't much better when they're allowed to roam freely outdoors, and in fact it is then, when the dog is allowed to be what it actually is, that it is readily apparent just how hostile to human presence they are. Due to the presence of dogs, many things are backwards or stuck in the past, as if we were still living in less enlightened times. For example, our streets, sidewalks, and parks are basically open sewers. Take their feces, for instance. Even if it is picked up, it leaves behind bacteria and particles that remain in the environment. Another good example of this: it's strange that in a modern city in the 21st century, and outside of the jungle or savanna, we are on the lookout for vicious predators in our midst, as though we were still living as hunter-gatherers. Simply the fact that there are so many online videos and articles specifically on how to deal with a dog attack shows just what a horrible impact these quasi-canines have on our society. When they aren't directly attacking us, they are sizing us up or stalking us. They growl and snarl, lunge and bark. They threaten and invade. It is a truly horrendous sight and sound to behold. The accompanying bodily response, being launched into fight or flight upon spotting one of these abrasive mutants, is not great either. The appeal to tradition, or appeal to common practice,
is the fallacy that's invoked when someone claims that something is right, or that it should be practiced, based solely on the fact that others are doing it. Or that simply because a thing has been done for a long time, it is good and should be done.
This is right, because we have always done it this way.
In this case, we can see it every time a dog defender tries to tell you all about how humanity has been involved with dogs for hundreds of thousands of years, and all the rest of it. And a while back, I saw a great counter to this. The commenter basically said that this is something only some humans have done. Here is what they wrote.
What does this have to do with me? I did not domesticate a wild canine, and I am not in some parasitic or allegedly symbiotic relationship with any dogs. I do not need a sled to be pulled, and I do not live on a farm. You may want a dog, but I do not.
Since the world was young, humans have had the innate ability to recognize external threats in their environment. This meant avoiding thorny plants, not hanging out on cliff edges, being averse to insects, and being mindful of obvious predatory threats. But it seems we have lost our way. What would an ancient human's reaction be to spotting a pit bull or cane corso wandering about near the campfire at night? After all, this is the true test of our species' natural reaction to the sudden presence of such beasts, to which many have grown counterintuitively comfortable. Of course, there are still people living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle today, such as the Hadza people of Tanzania, or the Lengua people of Paraguay, who, unlike your next-door neighbor, have sustained themselves by more traditional means, leading migratory lives as foragers and fishers and all that sort of thing. According to mainstream sources, a long process of selective breeding began tens of thousands of years ago and ultimately led to the common dog of today. Canis lupus familiaris, then, has come down to us from a currently unknown animal, which is also believed to share an ancestor with the modern grey wolf. But these proto-dogs would have provided early humans not only with a cave guard of sorts, but also a source of food, fur, and a working animal, akin to a beast of burden. Everything from being used for hunting, pulling sleds, and, once most of the world existed as an industrial one, turning roasting spits, and transporting of goods via sledges, among various other purposes for which dogs were essentially employed. Put simply, dogs were never our friends, and one quick look at the basic definition of the word friend reveals this entire notion to be farcical. People who run around saying that their dogs are their friends are either in dire need of a dictionary or they are abysmally isolated and of such weak mental character that they will refer to anything as a friend. After all, even in our increasingly atomized and alienated modern world, almost no person alive today is truly alone, like the character Tom Hanks played on the 2000 film Castaway, which was an unfortunate FedEx employee who found himself stranded on an uninhabited island in the South Pacific. But of course, a third option exists. It is also possible that they have been socially conditioned or accustomed to referring to dogs in this fashion. It's just that they never thought about the idea critically or about how silly it truly is.
There is a lot that could be said about social conditioning. In a previous video I did, one titled, "Dog Owner is a Dangerous Cultivated Identity," I covered a lot of this at length, so I won't go too deep into it here. However, I may revisit it sometime, perhaps even redo that previous video. But let's come back to the present for a second. Remember, the implication when the pop history of the dog is invoked is that dogs are therefore such a good fit for society. They also seem to be implying, a lot of the time, that there must be something wrong with people who don't like dogs today. But consider this. Dogs are very out of place on human settlements. If this were not the case, there would be no need for people to manipulate dogs with positive or negative reinforcement to stop them attacking us on our own turf, killing people in their own homes, constantly wrecking the peace with incessant barking, destroying property, and so on. Just the fact that so many people are complaining about their frequent attacks upon us and the various other problems they routinely cause is enough to dispel this ridiculous notion that dogs are a good fit for human society. Dogs may be somewhat trainable, but their mode of operation in the world is radically different from ours. This should go without saying. Dogs obviously don't interface with the world or interact with one another and us the way we do. For a simple example, they use their teeth for play, which is actually an instinctive practice for killing and hunting, similar to wolves and lions. Dogs also use their teeth to display dominance or to intimidate others. They use feces and urine to communicate with other dogs and so on. As was noted along with such examples in the book The Dog Crisis, dogs are, in many ways, an alien in our world. But can they really be that bad? Among other things, dogs devalue human life, spread disease, cost taxpayers in a number of ways, damage property, waste resources, harass and kill livestock and wildlife, harass and chase cyclists and joggers just for being in motion, attack letter carriers, cause vehicular accidents, kill infants and children, and attack people in general. Despite these facts, we must constantly hear people all around us as they mindlessly parrot the lies and lines which they have swallowed whole and uncritically. Again, just from a public health and safety standpoint, dogs are awful. Grassy areas and sidewalks the world over are ruined and contaminated from dog feces and urine. How is this an example of something that has successfully integrated into human society? I don't see it. And ultimately, the core issue is, as always, the presence of dogs itself.
Dogs did not evolve naturally. Rather, they were selectively bred. Humans created dogs for their own self-gain. This was also a very long time ago. This was in the past. Dogs today don't deserve any special treatment. Dog behavior is grossly out of touch with human society. Dogs have not evolved to the point where they can be unsupervised. When dogs are autonomous in human society, humans suffer. Many parasites co-evolved with us. Do we keep them as pets today? Of course not.
What I really hate about seeing or hearing the rote and witless repetition of this statement, that dogs and humans have supposedly been in this near-eternal symbiotic relationship or whatever, is that they say this to imply that dogs have some unique bond with humans. But in reality, it is only dog owners who actually want dogs around. And sometimes, even they see the limits of their patience reached quickly because of how dogs are. What this co-evolution refers to is humans and dogs having been subject to similar environmental and selection pressures. It does not imply that our species should continue to own dogs today, and it is not an excuse for the bizarre preferential treatment dogs receive. It does not somehow make everyone a, quote, dog person, and it is not a justification for the lunacy that arises from dog culture today. Frankly, this should never be brought up, that dogs and humans evolved together. As Tom Quixote noted on Reddit, head lice also evolved with us. As another commenter notes,
they didn't evolve, they were selectively bred, all dogs. They were bred to have specific characteristics, blood sport dogs, working dogs, etc. It's no different than modern livestock or modern produce. They don't have a special bond with humans. At best, dogs were selected to be extremely food motivated, which means they may form temporary bonds with what they perceive as the vector for receiving food. That's it. People will mistake the Stockholm Syndrome effect as love, but that doesn't make it so. The dog can lose its owner and have a new one foisted upon it, and as long as it's fed, the dog will be fine. That says all you need to know about their special bond with humans. Dogs don't deserve any sort of special treatment.
I want you to take a look at the image on the left here. Now, is it just me? Or does this not look like a dog attack being depicted? It looks like the dog in this painting is biting this person. Someone pointed this out, and now I can't unsee it.
Another thing that bears emphasis is that, despite this assertion, dogs are obviously not a good fit for human society. Dogs having co-evolved with us is not the same thing as them being able to integrate into modern human society. Those two ideas are not the same, but dog nutters conflate them. The only thing we can say for certain is that dogs with genetically selected behaviors have been bred by humans, and if anything, this makes dogs categorically unnatural. It is actually interesting that dog lovers, being that many of them falsely call themselves animal lovers, will ultimately side with an artificial, man-made creature over nature every time. A topic for another time, perhaps. It shouldn't ever have to be explained to anyone. But dog worshippers are constantly acting like they can't, for the life of them, comprehend why dogs are such a terrible fit for human society. But I mean really, these are neurotic and hyperactive beasts with no wariness of humans, which means that they are incredibly intrusive. That is a large part of the reason there are laws and rules in many countries and territories, stating that they must be restrained in public. Unfortunately, these are often completely disregarded by dog nutters, so the laws are toothless. Unlike dogs, and in places like the UK, there is no blanket law requiring dogs to be kept on a lead in all public spaces. Whether it is lax laws or their complete absence, you can expect dog nutters everywhere to fully take advantage. But the fact that dogs bark their stupid fool heads off at everything, this is obviously a feature and a bug with these domestic vermin. But I like the caption about sacrifices, because obviously only some individuals here are being sacrificed. Dog owners far and wide are really asking us all to make sacrifices, all so that they can enjoy unique privileges and engage in a degenerate and backward lifestyle choice, all at our expense. If dog ownership were some rare, niche, private hobby that was never imposed on others, we would not be having this debate. Dogs are basically obsolete farming equipment that's falsely advertised as a pet animal. But if we look at the longest-running primary use of dogs by humans, that is, if we are to take them at their word that their version of history is accurate, dogs were exclusively something utilized to help us obtain food for the longest time. That is to say, hunting. But there are two important things to keep in mind here as well. 1. Humans don't actually need dogs in order to hunt. It is a tool, like any other. A little test I've run on my own is to search for terms like, how did ancient humans hunt? You can even slightly alter it, but just keep dogs out of it. Curiously, dogs aren't usually mentioned, and if they are at all, it certainly isn't the first thing you will find. You can broaden it and search for things like how primitive humans obtained food, and you will see things listed, like hunting, gathering, fishing, foraging, and seasonal migration. So, for instance, again, how did early humans hunt? Well, here it describes one method. It does say that they developed tools and weapons with which to hunt animals, and it makes no mention of dogs, although dogs are technically just another tool in our arsenal, at best. Remember how I just said that the first important thing to keep in mind is that humans don't actually need dogs to hunt? Well, I said there were two things to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is that it is not as if the use of dogs in this capacity was super widespread across humanity. Likewise, we can even look around a bit today and see that not all cultures like or embrace dogs. Not all individual humans like dogs, or enjoy them, or benefit from them. It is also worth noting that there is quite a bit of debate as to how prevalent hunting was in our past.
But that's neither here nor there. The main point is this. The fact that dogs and humans may have co-evolved together is not a justification for their continued widespread ownership as pets in the modern world. It should also be noted that there is not a lot of direct evidence for the precise nature of this past relationship, and, as noted earlier, no evidence that dogs would have been this omnipresent fixture in daily human life, like it unfortunately seems to be in many places today. The co-evolution of dogs and humans is often cited as a justification for the continued widespread ownership of dogs as pets in contemporary society. However, this historical relationship does not adequately address the ethical, environmental, and social implications of dog ownership today. Even if the domestication of dogs provided certain benefits in ancestral contexts, modern life presents vastly different contexts that question the appropriateness of maintaining such relationships. Environmental concerns related to pet ownership in general, and dog ownership in particular, warrant critical examination. The resources required to maintain pets contribute significantly to ecological degradation. From food production to waste management, the impact of millions of household pets on sustainability cannot be ignored in light of pressing global challenges such as climate change. And while it's certainly possible that these proto-dogs were potentially helpful in ancient human camps to some extent, perhaps because their night vision and hearing could possibly alert to potential threats, their barking is very out of place in densely populated human settlements. This romanticized view of dogs undermines the importance of understanding their very real, and very dangerous and unpleasant, natural instincts and behaviors. When dog fanatics project human qualities onto their pet dogs, they exacerbate behavioral issues which are already inherent to dogs. This further strains relationships between dogs and society at large, and while this is often not good for dogs themselves, the human toll cannot be overstated. Such unrealistic portrayals contribute to a culture where dog ownership is romanticized to such an extent that it is presented as the very opposite of what it actually is. Ultimately, embracing a more realistic perspective on dog behavior is crucial to understanding real-world dog behavior. Dogs are not the flawless creatures they are often falsely portrayed as. Far from it. When we recognize what was once commonly understood, that pets are not family, and that dogs are not our friends, we promote better welfare for humanity, and ultimately, we come to understand that the presence of dogs itself is a detriment to society, an impediment to social and technological progress, and ultimately, an archaic remnant of an obsolete and irrelevant past, where the inclusion of dogs in certain limited realms might have been the best that could be done at the time. Namely, I am referring to dogs as beasts of burden, but that time is not now.